Good evening. This is the February 3rd, 2025 Community Preservation Committee meeting. My name is Jason Molina. I'm the vice chair of the committee, and I'm stepping in today as chair. Deb Mooney is participating with us remotely. However, she's not feeling well, so that's why she's remote today, and she's asked me to chair. I see we have a quorum, so we can continue. First order of business is review and approve minutes. Are there any questions or comments relative to the minutes from the last meeting? No? Okay, I'm not hearing any. All those, I'll take a motion to approve minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes from the December meeting.
Okay,
Second.
second. Okay, all those approve, say aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, say nay. Okay, minutes are approved.
Abstaining.
Abstaining?
I wasn't here.
You weren't here at the meeting. Okay. You good? You good?
Yes, I got that.
Okay.
One abstention.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. McGoldrich, are there any bills to sign or review?
None this evening.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. McGoldrich, next order of business, staff reports, department report, please.
Yeah, so thank you. I think I did put in the drive the department report. I'm going to skip to the bulk of it, the part-time position number, item B. So I'm pleased to announce that we have successfully interviewed and selected Emma O'Connor, who will be providing staff support part-time to our office for CPC. So she will work only on CPC items. She's a great candidate. We'll have her around at the next meeting to introduce her in person. But sure, her start date will be February 10th. And we're happy to have her on board. So she becomes highly recommended, has done some work with nonprofits and similar organizations, and is highly motivated to do this type of work part-time. She may look at full-time in the municipal world, so she's expressed interest in that. So very happy to have her on board and working with us part-time and doing the critical work of the committee for the administrative side of things. So
Awesome.
Could you give me her name again, just for the minutes?
Emma O'Connor. Yep.
Emma O'Connor.
Great, well, that's exciting to hear that she's coming on board. And do you envision at some point that she would be in your place at these meetings, or still to be seen?
So we're working on our staffing plan for the next coming year. We are looking at, traditionally we've done one staff member per board. We're looking to do some overlapping kind of training and move into more of a 2 staff member per board, depending upon kind of need and expertise. So she certainly would be, once comfortable, probably doing the majority of the meetings, but we may move into more of a 2-person staff support role.
Okay, sounds good. And then lastly, because it's relevant to our committee in terms of funding, is this going to be a CPC administrative request?
Yeah, so this would be funded through the administrative account as that part-time position, so, yeah.
Okay, which is an eligible expense of the CPC as defined by CPA Chapter 44B.
Correct, yeah.
All right, thank you very much. All right, any other staff report you want to discuss?
No,
Anything else?
that's the bulk of it.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to the next order of business is the first action item here, project eligibility applications. Up first is the ledger record restoration. I'm sure if Gail, do you want to talk to that one? or-
Sure.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
also have Melissa McKenna, who's chair of the Historical Commission, in the audience as well. So,
Welcome.
and I don't think Sharon could make it tonight because of with everything going on tomorrow, I'm sure. So, anyway, it came to the attention of the Historical Commission some time ago that there were a number of ledger books that were in pretty bad condition with mold and outside covering needed repair. So the Historical Commission decided that this may be a good project for CPA, for historic preservation. So there are 7 mortgage books and 2 index ledgers that you can see from in the drive, the pictures that were submitted that they're in need of some restoration work. It's important that these be restored because the town is required to maintain whatever records they have by the state statute. So these are really not in any condition to be looked at or touched or utilized. So by restoring them, they'll be able to be accessible to not only the staff, but to anyone else that may need the information obtained in them. I don't know if there's any questions you have. I think the application's pretty self-explanatory. We did have a local restoration company on 140 to give us a quote, and they can do it pretty quickly. I think they're putting us on the top of the list if we decide to go for it, so they're reputable. And the bindery company did suggest that they be stored in archival boxes, so we've included that as preservation as well. So there's a $100 added expense for the boxes. These aren't large ledgers, but they should be put in individual boxes, so that should cover it. There are other old books, ledgers and document books in the vault that probably should be stored differently, so there could be a possible another application in the future for just archival boxes and stuff. But right now, we'll take care of these and get them up to snuff. The insides were remarkably in good shape. It's mostly the bindings that need repair and replacement.
Okay. Committee members, any questions? Yael, can you talk about the, because we have an audience and just folks that are listening, and can you talk about what the ask is, the cost?
The cost?
Yes.
Certainly, yeah. The cost, let me get the, the estimate is, the composition mortgage indexes, it's $375 for one volume, $475 for the second volume. And there's an explanation, they've explained that one is in relatively good condition, just needs reback, new cloth spine, rebuild the corners and stabilize the first and last few pages. The second is moldy and missing its covers. We can spray the pages and denature it with denatured alcohol to kill the mold. It will not make the pages look any different. And we will do minimal page stabilization with Japanese tissue to the fragile edges. We will put a new composition style soft cover with old marble similar to current and age appropriate. There's 6 mortgage record ledger bindings. The sewing is good, contents mold-free, binding itself is moldy and rotting and needs to be replaced or replicated. We would use maroon smooth goat skin and charcoal gray black cloth to replicate current look. And that's $700 per volume. We can replicate a 3/4 leather ledger style binding as now with plain ends, minimal repairs to first and last pages, simple spine labeling to be determined, or for $600 per volume, the same as above, but a 1/4 inch leather binding, no leather corners. We decided that we wanted to replicate them as close to the original as they were, so we're going for the additional binding, which all comes to $6,550 plus the $120 consultation, and then $100 for the archival boxes. So the total ask is, I don't do the math in my head because I'm not a mathematician.
So I have it in front of me if you want.
You
I
have
have it in front of me,
you?
yeah.
Okay.
$6,770.
Correct.
All right, and this is checking off historic preservation under preserve and rehabilitate/restore. So both of those are being checked off. I understand why we normally suggest just one box, but in this case, there's 2 things that are occurring. Some preserving of the pages, and then there's restoration of
Correct.
of aspects of it as well. Lastly, has the Historic Commission deemed these artifacts as historic?
Yes. And the clerk's office is our co-sponsor. So Sharon Thomas will be the liaison between the bindery and we just did the grunt work, so she can take it from there.
Okay. Just for this committee's records, would you be able to share the minutes or other artifact recording that these books are deemed local historic nature?
Yes.
Because I'm sure this is probably not going to be at Macris, right?
Yep, there's a letter from the Historical Commission in your drive.
Okay.
Do I have that in front of me? I can tell you that the dates of the volumes, that might be interesting for you if somebody would like to know. Volume 2 is from 1832, Book 4 was 1885, Book 5 is 1895, Volume 8, 1919 to 1922, Volume 9, 1923 to 1927, Volume 10, 1926 to 1930, and Volume 11, 1930 to 1934. And the Massachusetts Municipal Retention Schedule does state that, that all filings pre-1920 need to be permanent records in the permanent record file. And from 1920 to 1958, retained until administrative use ceases. I can't find that letter. Do you have it?
It's in the
Is it in
drive.
your drive?
It's in the drive.
It's in the drive.
Preservation of mortgages, not PDF.
I thought I had it in, oh, maybe, nope. I can look it up on mine if you want.
No, I think it's good enough. It's a surprise. It's supported, just say. Okay, great. Let's see. All right, having heard the description, what's going on, and obviously we have our materials posted to the drive. Are there any committee questions or concerns relative to eligibility of this project? Again, this is just at the eligibility stage, and then we'll,
Right.
the next question will be relative about whether we should fund this project or move it forward to town meeting to request funding.
No questions?
Okay.
My only comment is that, you know, we say mortgages are recorded in the land records. I think this is, if you looked at the contents of this, it probably, you know, goes back to, they say chattel mortgages, personal property.
Right.
So it probably goes back to when Shrewsbury was more of an agrarian society, so it probably has references to crops and cattle and stuff like that, rather than land.
Right.
Have you seen these?
Oh, well, not as much as I'd like to, because you don't want to handle them. Melissa has seen a little bit closer.
Yes, you are correct. So for every property listed, it does include things, you know, lack or kettle. That's what was so fascinating, seeing this for the first time, because it was when people moved, you know, they didn't have a U-Haul van, you know, so things stayed if there was a big move. And everything included in the home stayed there, and they listed everything. So it was fascinating to look back, you know, to the 19th century to see what people actually left.
It would surprise me if your property, Gail, was on the list. Farm.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I can't get to my property is in one of these books, but I can't get to it because you don't want to turn the pages, so it'll be fun to be able to research that at one point.
All right, great, thank you. And recognizing that Deborah's on, she's still with us? Okay, all right, and so can she come off mute? Can she come on audio if need to? If she needs to, okay.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, well, with that,
Do we need a motion for eligibility? How does that
yes,
work?
yes. So at this point, You okay with, take that out of order? Sure. Okay. So I'll take a motion for, I hope looking at you to
You want
submit
me
it.
to do it?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know,
Deem
I'm
as
not
eligible.
sure how you word, just, I move that we deem the
Ledger record restoration.
ledger record application as eligible for,
Second.
for funding?
Yes.
Oh, okay, for funding.
Yep, second.
Carl, second. Okay. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. And could we get Deborah?
Now, do we have to do a roll call vote?
Chris,
I
okay,
do.
we gotta
Yeah,
do a
We
formal
do?
roll call? Okay, fine.
we do.
All right, apologize for that, folks. A little rusty. It's been
I
a
know.
couple of years. This is a chair. Okay. All right, I'll start with Deborah. If she can come off mute. Deborah, you there? Chris, you see her in the,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
She's there, but she's on mute.
okay. We can't hear you if you're on mute. Okay. Well, in that case, we're gonna move on. Okay.
Tried.
We tried. All right. So Deborah, no response on that vote?
We can mark her as abstain and take
Abstain?
the vote as we did.
Okay, great. All right, so that we have approval to move forward with eligibility. That one. Okay, staying with that same topic because we're also going to be looking at the application for a funding perspective. Any reason to not move forward on that at this time?
No.
No? Okay. All right, great. All right, I'll take a motion for recommending this project.
Are we we're jumping to funding?
Yes, for the same project. Now, this, I think, I'm sorry, actually, before we get to that, we should be asking about availability of funds
Yes.
and for which bucket. This is next year's money to come in or existing monies?
So we would have additional budget for FY '26 at this point. So this would go on the May town meeting warrant, be eligible. Technically in between that, we could set the availability to be, day one of FY '26 where we start to have funds. If we do it in the FY '25 or prior to those first assessments, we will need to do out of the, let me just double check. We will have to do out of the general fund reserve. I believe historic preservation, yeah, so historic preservation as it stands only has 1,253 uncommitted funds. So we would have to do that, certainly after additional assessments. I don't have those exact figures right now, but I used the assessment from FY '25 and reduced the state match. We don't know what that number is
Right.
quite yet. But so budgeting conservatively, I'm estimating that'll recover to about 106,000 for FY '26. But again, I don't have figures to work with for that, so that's just using an estimate from previous amounts.
Okay.
I will get a more refined budget for, certainly before May.
So I know we'll get into the actual warrant articles as we get closer to the May town meeting, but it seems to me that we would look for this to be FY '26 dollars, not looking to use FY '25 dollars when we get there. Right? Since we have a new allocation anyway.
I guess my question is, you're saying there's only $1,000 available now.
Correct, uncommitted in the existing
I
budget.
guess I got to question how we come up with that, because it's my understanding, I could be wrong, from the Prospect Park pergola, we set aside 85,000, but that was only like 68,000 or something?
Yeah, 57.
And then the 205,000 for the gravestones, the bid came in at 152, so there's 50-something thousand left over there. When do those funds make their way back into the general, into the
Historical.
balance available?
Yeah.
Becomes the question.
You have a general response on that now, or do you want to come back to that relative to?
I'll come back to that. I can get a refined budget. We haven't allocated funds back, but I know projects are hitting their 2-year mark as well. I'll work with the accountant to get a clear picture of when those will directly come back to the account, so.
Well, do we need to wait 2 years, I guess? We should ask that question also.
So, yeah.
We wait 2 years if the money hasn't been spent.
Right,
If the money's committed,
right.
should we
right.
get it back?
As we know, like the pergola restoration project wasn't going forward, right? So there is money, there should be money available because there's no further work on that project. So if we know a project is complete or dead, then
True, but
when does
was
it
it,
come back? But
that first phase was to
Yeah.
do an analysis, and that came in under the budget, as well as the gravestones is
Yes.
coming in under.
yeah, so I think Chris, you're good with that for
I'll work with the accountant.
for the meeting. Thank you.
So even next meeting, probably we
Yes.
don't have to go to 2026 is my point for this $7,000.
All right. Well, not knowing, yeah, and obviously I brought it up
No,
just to know that, hey, because we should be asking when a project comes up, is there funding for this? How is it going to be paid for? And the working knowledge here is that it's going to be FY '26 dollars, that new appropriation as we move forward. So that's how we can move forward with confidence that there will be monies available for this particular project.
right.
Yeah, right. So, okay. But thank you for the question relative to how do we get money back from older projects that are closing down. So, cool, thank you. So, with that,
Okay, so I move we recommend project funding in the amount of $6,770 for the restoration or preservation of town record ledger books.
okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. And let's see if Deborah's there. Deborah, if you hear us, please come off mute.
No response.
I hear you.
There we go.
Excuse me.
Okay. All right, so I'll do a roll call. Deborah?
Aye.
Okay. Carl?
Aye.
Myself, aye.
Steve, yes,
Steve?
in
Steve
favor.
Reddick, yes. Oh, God. Aye, okay.
Aye.
Kathy? Yeah.
Aye.
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 Awesome. All right, everyone's aye. Okay, approved. Okay, next is Prospect Park ADA project. Okay. New project. And who we speaking to that? Normally would have had our, you gonna be talking about this one?
No.
No. Okay.
Hello,
Our guest will be talking about it. Hi.
how are you all?
Good, and you?
Yes, great. I am here.
If you could just please introduce yourself first.
I'm sorry?
If you could please introduce yourself first.
My name is Brenda Goodwill. I have Kevin Esposito here with me this evening, and I am here to present an application for Prospect Park Prospect Park accessibility improvements. The project, this project site is a formal gardens of the former Matthew and Gertrude Woodall estate located in Prospect Park. The project entails installing ADA-approved ramps and pathways for accessibility throughout the site. As a part of the site study that we had done a year ago, we have plans and layout for the installation. You should all have an image of the pathways and the ramp that we are looking to install. The town's engineering department has also provided input and information on budget costs. They will also be the project manager. So equal access to parks and recreation is a mandate of the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the town of Shrewsbury would then become compliant with Prospect Park in that area. It's interesting, Prospect Park, we seem to be getting busier and busier with more traffic in the park. We were in the Worcester Telegraph. I'm sorry, I forgot my newspaper. We were actually in the Worcester Telegraph Gazette twice last year. I don't know if you were aware of it, Prospect Park was. We were also featured on WBZ. Chris Tanaka did a feature part on Prospect Park. We had a wonderful, successful event, Art in Prospect Park last year as well. So we are getting people from all over the state visiting. Nothing but positive and wonderful things do we hear. The only comments or negatives that I hear, it's just not accessible. It's very challenging for anyone with accessible needs to navigate the garden when we have events. And so this is what we want to address this year, is to install these and bring the area up to code, and therefore we'd be able to invite more people from accessibility challenges and provide just a better event area for those who are visiting.
Okay, thank you. Committee questions?
Based on your diagram here, is it just what's in gray here?
Yes, all the gray is, would be stabilized aggregate,
So
which
it's
is,
it's this path here and this
yes,
path
around the
here.
circle.
Is it this as well?
The gray, what you see gray, that is the aggregate. And you can see it circling
Yeah.
the oval. You see it going to the pergola, around the pergola. And there are two little wings off of that pergola walkway. And then there's one access off the oval, which actually comes out. We are going east and connecting the access road and our ADA compliant parking area.
Okay.
And then that, there's one more aggregate ramp that will end at the, up on top of the garden area. There's an old cement viewing platform that used to belong to the hospital. That's still there, so we just have one aggregate pathway to allow persons to go on that level. So that is one level. Then the oval is yet another level. And then when you travel down the aggregate pathway towards the gazebo, you're actually going to be going down. And that will bring you down to the lowest level, which is around the pergola. So there's actually 3 levels in the Garden of Sweet Remembrance. And the ramp, the large ramp, will be, it's really hard to tell on that.
Well, it's
Ne-
labeled ramp.
No, it's way, that's right.
Not there. That's going to be an aggregate ramp. Yes, that was it. You got it. The second circle. That was it. That will be a ramp. And it will go from the ADA parking lot through the wooded area, yep, down to the, yes, there you go.
It's roughly 65 feet. It would be concrete with railings, with metal railings.
So I have a question. It wasn't clear, I mean, it was the application was talking about what your goal is, but what exactly is this funding? Is this the actual 65 feet you're talking about? Is
No,
this
the,
actual construction, or is this
all of the
pathways.
pathways.
the whole thing?
Pathways and the
the
ramps.
ramp.
Okay.
Pathways and ramp.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, please. Steve.
can I ask,
Please do.
how many linear feet in total?
We
I
have
do-
that.
I do not have that.
I don't either. Yeah, I mean, we can get that to you. I don't remember.
But of varying widths?
5 feet.
5 feet.
5 feet, yep.
I think that's the ADA.
They would have grass strips on the sides. We didn't want to make it look like just one big dirt road in there, so
We're going with
we
the,
were gonna go with grass strips on each side of the path.
So if I'm getting this right from the description here, you already have a plan laid out for that long, the long wayside, the red part, right? That second circle was when Chris drew it. And does that mean that the other red section there to the left, viewing wise from the screen, is that gonna be the
that
brick
is,
walkway?
that's a secondary component that the Friends of Prospect Park would like to install. That is a memorial brick walkway that once the ADA pathways and ramp is complete, then we would like to install a memorial brick walkway. This walkway will allow us a fundraising mechanism to begin making more money on our own to be able to take care of, maintain, and put into more projects as we go forward. So that colored area, that red, is showing you where we'd like to start that memorial brick walkway.
Okay, and so this project, obviously, although you've commented on.
But
that's
no
not-
funds
not
are
included.
going to that.
Yep.
That's only a secondary after this
Gotcha.
is complete. We can then start that. And this will be a springboard for a fundraising mechanism for us. Having the ramps done and the pathways complete, then we can do our.
Gotcha. Okay.
I do have an image, a couple images. If you wanted to pass these along.
Yes, please.
That might make this a little easier. That shows how that aggregate will look. This shows my very simplistic rendition of my brick memorial walkway. That's where that will go. And that is maybe a clearer picture of
Oh, yeah.
the design of the layout of the path and ramp.
I'll just need to keep those copies if that's all right.
Yeah.
So nice.
Okay.
Do you need, I can make copies.
You can make copies and give back to me.
All right.
Yeah, they might even have notes of mine on there.
I have a question about this plans for the cemetery part of this area. Are there any plans to come up to, right up to this?
No, nowhere near.
The cemetery won't be, but the access roads
Yeah.
will be improved in there, yes.
So the road, so with the beginning, the landing of that ramp, is that gonna be upgraded at all or touched by either the cemetery project or this project?
The cemetery's really on the
Ours.
other side.
Yeah. Well,
the-
I don't mean literally the cemetery
Right.
itself, because we know that's gonna be further down in the hill.
Right now.
What I mean is the access road improvements and any other construction.
I can't say definitely.
paved roadway.
We were talking about upgrading all the roads in there because we
Okay.
still need access to the water supply up there. So there was supposed to be an access improvement going up there so the water department doesn't have to drive through the cemetery all the time. So I
Okay.
believe that would be that road.
And I know you commented about parking. Can you point to where the parking is now? Is that slow
The
parking?
ADA part.
Better picture of that.
Yeah.
You can see the.
Is it in here?
Yeah, it's on there.
There's a spot for about four
Let's see,
cars
let me
right
get my
there, and we also
sure.
have a little spot over here too, so yes.
Where-
This is the,
So the service
paved
road
roadway.
comes, the main road comes right up here and drops the folks off. Water towers are here. So the main
Okay,
road
so-
comes up here, goes around the water towers, comes right here, boom, lets those people off. And then the secondary service road comes down here. Prospect Park.
So if the water towers are here,
Water tower's here.
the access comes from the housing development that's up in the back
This
there?
is just ADA accessible. Anyone that's coming to an event,
That's a Memorial Brickway.
visiting the park, if it's open, you know, they can park here, and then with a wheelchair, they can come to this area, they can take their wheelchair along the aggregate and come to the viewing area, which is the top tier, or they can take their wheelchair, come down the ramp, and then come into the garden this way, and this is the secondary tier, where you see all the flowers, the majority of them around the oval. And then this will be a slight ramp of aggregate, and in the future, we hope to then make this brick. And this brings people down to these lower areas. So this is all going to be an aggregate,
Yes.
aggregate from our parking lot for those.
So getting to the parking lot, it doesn't show a road there.
Road. No,
The road that's there now, when you pull into Prospect Park, that will be the road. That
The main
goes, that
road?
goes up
You
and
know
around.
the main road in the Prospect Park?
See, I've never been in there, but the main road, that's not coming from Prospect Street, because
Yes,
It
yes,
is.
yes, we have two entrances
if it's
on
coming from,
Prospect Street, there are two
right.
paved.
But see, I haven't been there, but once I'm by the water towers, that's on the backside of the park, isn't it?
Right, but the road
top back.
comes up from Prospect.
But it
There's not
circles, it
access.
circles around this area then.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, awesome, okay. Okay, here's Prospect Street, coming here.
Yes.
This is the secondary access road that we only use when we have an event and we open that up. This is the main road right here. That's opened when we have work days and events as well. So this main drive, this is the one that you see all of the formal gate and the stone. So you're coming up here, you're driving up here. If you were someone who needed access and couldn't ride their bike, couldn't drive a car, couldn't walk, so you would drive up here, go around here,
Okay.
and then right here is where those three little parking spots are, right here. So you would park your car here, and then you could use the aggregate pathways, boom, to come in.
So the cemetery is to the left of that road.
Oh, there, oh, yeah, you can see the pad, right there, was there.
And that road is part of the cemetery cemetery construction, to redo that road.
Could you zoom in a little bit? There you go. Oh, great. Okay, so there's that parking, there's the pad. The parking spot's right here, so it would bring, the aggregate would bring people right into there. Oh. We
I'm just
are,
getting fancy.
we're now inside. This is fall. Past the fall, it's winter. So that is the higher elevation. Wow, this does not look like that anymore. And so this is where you have the viewing platform up here. You can't see that now. And the ramp will actually be in these woods over here, and it will bring people at this access right now. This is now a pathway. And then it will continue on through here, and then the aggregate path will go around that oval right through there and bring people into this area. So we'll come through here, go through the woods. Parking lot is over there.
So the perimeter of the oval's also gonna have a concrete path?
I'm sorry?
The perimeter of the oval's also gonna have a concrete path?
No.
No, that's
Aggregate.
stabilized.
Aggregate,
now.
just
Aggregate,
crushed stone?
yeah.
It's, but it has a binder in it
Okay,
that holds it solid, so it doesn't,
Right.
doesn't wash away.
okay.
Right,
Like
that
regular stone
aggregate
does.
path will come through here, it'll come here, the aggregate path will go in the middle, we'll have a nice little loop, and then there'll be a slight ramp down here with the aggregate to the gazebo, I'm sorry, right here. There'll be a slight ramp. And there we go. Because these are steps here, so we're gonna fill in those steps So you'll have just a gradual aggregate ramp that's going to bring you down here. And so when that's done, then we'll be able to start our memorial brick walkway that will go around the gazebo and come right up here. Which will give, Shrewsburyans a place to, honor, memorialize family, members, pets. It's another secondary awesome need that the community will have. And it ties in nicely with the cemetery coming over. It continues to be a memorial spot for the town. Memorial spot, you see people having picnics, kids playing, hikers, bikers, dog walkers. I mean, it's amazing how much use this park is getting, and it gets busier and busier. It's busier and busier. Are there any other?
Yes, so is the aggregate part that's going to be added, is that part of this request?
Aggregate?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In the
So-
ramp, in the one
See,
ramp.
and committee members, please, if it's clear to you, please speak up. But to me, it wasn't clear what part is actually being requested to be funded. So is,
88 pathways.
I know, but
Yeah.
it's general, it's like what exactly is it what's being proposed? Is it just the 65-foot rail, cement with
No,
the
it's-
railing? Is it the aggregate? So I think,
The aggregate pathways,
Yes.
the ADA pathways and ramp. So the ramp where that's indicated, where it's going to be through here on that other image. And all of the gray that you see in the very first image that you all got handed out, all that gray is the aggregate. So there's grading that will have to be done. The aggregate will have to be, applied, laid out, installed. That grading, that ramp right there. And then this is a hardscape ramp that will go over here.
The 5-foot sidewalks are gonna be concrete, poured concrete.
No, only the ramp is concrete.
Only the ramp is concrete.
That's it, the rest is
Right,
just
the rest is
aggregate.
the stabilized
Okay.
material.
just a clarify question, so this image, right, this is the image that was submitted, okay? So I can't tell from this picture whether the gray is a pre-existing
That picture
picture,
is really bad.
and that's why I'm having,
That's why
and
you're not- that's
again,
why- 'cause
committee
you're
members,
not-
please comment on this. Okay.
It's everything, once it gets copied, it seems to lose more and more of its clarity. So all the gray is the aggregate stone pathways.
What's the lifespan of I know you said there's a polymer or there's a binding agent, but how long does that last? Kevin?
I don't know.
Gosh.
I don't.
Years.
5, 50?
10, 15.
Depends on the use, sorry, a landscape architect. If there's constant use, like running, trampling, things like that, then the lifespan gets reduced. It also
Is there-
depends on maintenance, freeze and thaw. If there's pockets where water goes in, thaws and freezes. So if you keep the maintenance according to the use, you can extend the lifetime to 5, 10 years. If there is no maintenance for it, obviously would be less than 5 years.
Hmm.
And that's my guess from experience. But
Thank you.
Is there?
So we didn't get the length.
I'm getting a question, but do we need to run this by any other group, town department to review this from a ADA compliance perspective, the whole project? Or do we
No,
have that, Kevin?
it's
Is
already
that good
gone
enough?
through, it's already gone to engineering, so we know that the slopes meet ADA.
And the
and the-
selection of this aggregate is acceptable?
Yes. Yep.
This aggregate we're talking about, is that the same
It's like a stone dust.
material that we use is it Camp Waukegan?
One again?
No, that is regular stone dust. That's just stone dust.
We're doing a stabilized aggregate.
We would have larger stone in it, And then the binder, when they put it in, they have a binder material that holds it more solid than just packed stone dust.
If it only has a life of 5 to 10 years, why wouldn't you get a price on actual concrete with a stone mix that would probably last 30 or 40 years? I know it'll be more money, but
I don't know that we want concrete in there. I don't know.
just a little bit more water and a little bit more sand than what you're throwing in there. And you have some permanence. Looks nice.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what do you do after the 5 years?
I'm sorry, just correction, no one has said 5 years. I just threw a number out.
No.
out there. No one has said that it'll be 5
No, the
years.
landscape architect, the expert.
More.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
God,
not
I'm never
saying, I
coming here
mean,
again.
like, what I meant is, it depends on the use and the maintenance. But, you know, if it gets daily use with like 40, 50 people, the providers of this aggregate, I mean, of this binder, say five years plus, right? That's what they do in a very conservative mode. But it all depends on the use, not on the product.
Sorry, if anyone would be able to speak, who's in the audience, you can come up to the microphone, if
Yeah.
you can't hear you on the broadcast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sorry about that. All right. Well, the project is proposed as submitted. So I know, Steve, you're looking at different options here.
It's not my application.
No, I understand. I'm saying, so that thing just goes into first our eligibility question, and then move into the actual application process. That's also up here. Actually, it's not on the agenda. Is it your intention or understanding that the application is ready? Okay. I'll wait till Chris settles in.
Oh, thank you.
All right, so let's go over eligibility first. Any other questions relative to eligibility?
Does this comes under the Parks and Recs purview? You know,
This
I
is
guess
under
I'm asking which
recreation.
category is it?
Rehabilitation, restore, recreation.
Is it open space, recreation? Okay. So I was looking for that.
Yeah, it is under recreation as a rehabilitate/restore. Yep. And when we work with the recreation column, the lands need to be deemed recreation land, which we know that because as a town meeting member, I remember that we took a vote on that, right, to deem the remainder of Prospect Park as a recreation land. So that's covered. That'll be a theme when we get to the next one as well. Okay, any eligibility questions, further eligibility questions? Kathy?
On the, oh, no, it's a funding. I'll wait.
Okay. Okay. All right, well, not hearing any, someone like to make a motion on deeming this project eligible or not eligible?
I move that we allow the project for Prospect Park accessibility improvement be declared eligible for our purposes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second?
All right, we're gonna do a roll call. We'll start with Deborah.
Aye.
Okay, Steve?
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Gail?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
And myself, aye. Okay, this project is deemed eligible, and Chris, on the agenda, it does not include this project for application. Do you,
So there was an error on the agenda, where it says funding agreement votes, that was meant to be funding, project funding applications added to that, so.
okay. All right, so we'll move forward with the reviewing it from the application perspective. Okay, so again, now we're looking at the funding here at $150,000.
143,000.
Oh, sorry, yes, sorry, and the 7,000 coming from the Rental Prospect Park, correct, thank you. Okay, any other questions relative to the application itself?
I just have, not a question, generally it's a thought, right? You know, we're kind of going, we're putting new projects ahead of existing projects that as far, I see this as kind of fast tracking, right? And I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it, but I have a concern that we have other applications that have been in the pipeline that we're suddenly jumping these ahead. And if there's suddenly a funding issue or a project that's already been in our pipeline, is it a first come, first serve? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes.
So I just have a concern.
Okay. Well, certainly, I think in comparison to the last project, which was at $6,000 or thereabouts, that was pretty easy to.
Yeah, no,
This one
yep.
being a larger amount, yes. And
Right.
also the next project that also on our agenda is a pretty large number as well.
Right, and
I
right.
will remind that we're not at a position right now that we have to take a vote tonight, because we do have some time before town meeting. But it was important to hear from the applicant in terms of hearing the pitch for why to have this project from their perspective. It's good that we had that initial conversation here. I think it's also important that we do weigh in, as you're mentioning here, the prioritization of projects to see where they slot in terms of from a dollars and cents perspective. Given that there is another project ahead of us on this agenda, and I don't know if there's any others in the pipeline or pre-existing ones that are going to be looking for
Yeah,
continuation.
I guess I look at like Arrowwood, right? I know there's a redo of the proposal for Arrowwood, and it's already on here as a funding application, number 2. I don't have a problem voting on Prospect Park Pergola, well, I'm sorry, the title's a little off here, right? The ADA compliant. I don't have a problem voting on it just later after our previous projects that have already been in the pipeline have been voted on.
Yep.
That's all. That's all.
I'll comment that I share the same perspective on that in terms of looking at it from a total perspective of like what are all the asks from the recreation category, right? And just to repeat my last comment, the historical preservation project we just talked about, that was a no-brainer, it's pretty small, et cetera, right? But this one is a pretty large one, and I think I have all the information that I need from the applicant in terms of moving forward with this project. Now it's a question about putting into the mix of what are all the asks for this May town meeting.
Yep.
So I'm with you. I'm in the camp that I don't want to vote on it just yet until I hear about the project proposal that is also on the agenda for tonight. So, but we do have some time before we have to solidify in terms of all the requests for this May town meeting.
Well, I agree. I have no problem with the project, and I would, if the funding was available, I would go for it right now. But I think it's also important, another reason why we need an accurate accounting of what money we have and what we're going to be having and what's left in our coffers here, so that we can strategize on how we're going to utilize those funds. Because there's a lot of other projects coming forward, I'm sure, that are going to be significant. So we really need to do some forward planning as far as how we're using our money and how we're distributing it. But this project I'm 100% for, but it may be a little premature, as you say, to vote on it tonight. But I could see possibly next month doing it if we have an accurate accounting of our funding and we know that, okay, the funds are there and we can utilize $140-some thousand of it on this project without worrying about the bill later.
Right. I see that Deborah has her hand raised.
Sorry. I am in agreement with waiting, simply because we typically have invited public comment on those that we've considered to be eligible. Excuse me. And we haven't had the opportunity for that. But if we were to put it to next month's agenda, we would have the chance to solicit any additional comments.
Thank you. Okay. So, hearing the discussion so far and hearing from our chair as well, Deborah, right? Sounds like we're not going to be taking a vote tonight on that, but any other questions, any comments before we move on to the next agenda item?
Can we make sure that it's on next month's agenda and with a financial summary so that we could move forward? We wouldn't have time if we have to wait another month after that. So can we get that done?
I mean, I guess in terms of the financial summary, is that something we can get in the next couple of weeks as opposed to getting it just a couple of days before? You know, if we get it, say, 2 weeks ahead of time, we'll have more time to digest it. I'm sure there'll be a lot of numbers on it.
Yeah, I'll work with the town accountant to get some figures. Again, we'll have to make some assumptions, I'm sure, not knowing what the state match will be. But again, we can do that conservatively so that we can make a decision based on a conservative budget, knowing that we will likely have more than what we're estimating. So,
And just, I don't have exact numbers, but I did hear like the Dean Park basketball project has, there's some money coming back from that as well, something in the range of $50,000 to $100,000. So I don't know how you get all that in there to say, to get us the best number we can have to work with. Okay. Thank you.
So if I could say, I have checked with the town accountant's office on returning funds, and once we have that number clear, then all I need to do is send them a letter with the account number and the remainder, and it'll just be transferred back into your funds. So we are working on that. We just want to make sure that everything's covered.
Yeah. Are you,
Great.
Kevin, are you the one who used the basketball? Like, you've got all the bills have been paid. Are you the one that basically tells the town accountant then
Yes,
the project's closed?
yes.
Okay. Good, yeah. I mean, I figured it would be you, but I just wanted to be sure.
Okay. Is there really 100,000 less? There
My
was.
number was somewhere between 50 and 100.
50 and 100, okay. All right, somewhere in there. That's
150?
Yeah. Sir,
That's great.
I believe it'll be closer to the top end than the bottom.
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
So
Okay.
I don't want to spew out a number right now.
Let me write it down. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, any last call, questions, comments?
Do you need me to get the total feet of the aggregate of the pathways? Is that a number
Yeah,
that
we
would
can-
be
I think that'd be
helpful, needed?
important, right? You
I
also
can
asked-
add it.
Yeah.
Linear.
That would
You had some,
I just wondered how many feet it was. I assume that, Kevin, I assume that you priced it out and have a
Yes, and,
fairly,
our engineering department did all the cost estimates,
I didn't catch this.
including the concrete rampway and all
okay.
I
that.
didn't catch her when she said her name.
and if, a comment on lifespan, typical lifespan of these. I know there was comment from our audience, but Kevin, if you can,
Yeah, we can look into that and
Yeah.
see what's,
Just want
okay,
what we do to be resilient.
thank you. Okay, all right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I think definitely as the agenda gets created for next meeting, if our applicants need to come back with any additional public support, or just open for, comment that'd be just noted in the agenda so that folks know when to come back, if they need to come back. But the formal presentation is done on that side. Okay, moving on to the next project, Jordan Pond Mass Trails application match. And this is for eligibility. Do you have somebody from the audience to speak to that one, or Chris?
No, so I'll be presenting this one this evening, so thank you. I just want to pull up the schematic design that we have.
Yeah, this is
So thank you. So the ask this evening is for the 20% match to a Mass Trails grant application, which was submitted this afternoon to Mass Trails, looking to bring the schematic design, which we have shown here, to full construction documents. The engineering department is working through local permitting, looking to file for February, March. May go into the April end of things, but we're hoping to be able to move quickly through local permitting. What this is the Jordan Pond Park has some existing trails, both materials that are paved and unpaved. This project envisions a multifaceted approach, bringing the remaining unimproved natural state paths up to paved standards, including some boardwalks and amenities such as overlooks. It also envisions a new accessible shared use path, which will go all the way to a new trailhead connecting to Worthington Ave, utilizing existing telephone wire easements. It's entirely on town-owned land, and it would also create additional connections to Jordan Road and Florence Street as well. So through a previous Mass Trails grant, we were able to develop this schematic, which includes a number of, we did the site survey work, wetlands flagging, and some public engagement with the neighborhoods nearby to develop this schematic design and this vision for the park. In addition, we have overlapped initiatives with this as not just trail improvements. It is tied to a number of our sustainability initiatives through the SNEP network and municipal vulnerabilities preparedness. It does incorporate stormwater improvement. So the Jordan Pond, as it stands, is currently impaired, which means that there is pollution from phosphorus and other kind of runoff that does impair the water quality of Jordan Pond. And so this trail would substantially work through nature-based solutions, incorporating landscaping and stormwater improvements to help mitigate some of the runoff and phosphorus loading in Jordan Pond to improve the water quality of that area, provide for habitat. So it includes, water quality as well as open space and amenity aspects to it. In addition, we'd like to include some educational signage related to those initiatives, so that what we're envisioning is not just a walk through the park, but opportunities to engage with nature-based solutions, where people who are not necessarily as exposed to those kinds of things and the technical aspects of that see a plant, and next to it you can, we have some examples of those kind of black signs in the horticultural gardens that have the species, but we would include some kind of detail of what that plant specific species is doing for water quality, sparking that interest in terms of some of those sustainability initiatives that we're pursuing. So it becomes an educational piece as well as quality of life, fitness for walking. We'll also use a mixture of, from our public engagement, we heard that there's a interest in including a mixture of in situ. We will have to do some grading and clearing, so using materials in space to provide some seating options, as well as likely some pad sites for memorial benches that would be a donation, that people could donate and actually install the benches. We would just do a pad for this part and not actually install the benches, but it provides a way for the community to get engaged, fundraise for a bench, and that creates additional connection to the space by actually allowing residents and organizations to place those memorial benches on the site. So We do have an overall project budget that was developed through this schematic design of approximately $2 million, just shy of $2 million for full implementation. The maximum award that Mass Trails allows is, including a 20% match, would be $625,000, so $500 from Mass Trails and the remainder $125 from the local match. So we envision probably using a multi-phased approach to this, but we do want to work to get to the full construction level documents and permitting. We have heard, by engaging with the residents through a number of community forums, through the development of the schematic design, as well as we had a number of other kind of outreach events. We have heard of, a lot of positive reviews in terms of having this amenity created. We've also heard concerns, so some of the locations of the overlooks will likely be moved or reduced to limit their impact and interrelation with the residential neighborhoods. They, indicated they would like to see those moved away from the houses and reduced in scale. And we've also heard concerns about Lakewood Drive being improved, and so that will be improved only as a trail and will not further promote vehicular traffic or pass-through traffic of the Lakewood Drive. So if you've been down to that location, there's significant potholes and, almost craters. It's a significantly unimproved roadway, and the residents in that area prefer it that way for the inhibiting pass-through traffic. So we will not be adding that to the scope of work at this time.
Members, questions?
May I comment?
Sure, yeah.
I would like to say that the Trails Committee has long wanted a project on the east side of the lake, which would be phase one of this project. We have received complaints in the past about why it was so badly maintained, and it wasn't an official trail. We did not have permission to have a trail there and took it off the maps for a while there. So if that is restored, I think that would be an excellent idea, and we're all looking forward to it. It's a really nice place to walk. It is a little difficult in spots, particularly in that northeast corner where there are incredible, those ruts should be posted no swimming or something. They're just really large, or at least stock them with fish if they're going to keep them. That needs to all be worked on. But I can't officially speak to the Trails Committee because we're not meeting on this topic until next Wednesday. But by and large, all the membership is eager to see this happen. And so do our what would you call it, our clients, our trail walkers. Would love to see this happen.
Thanks for sharing that.
If I can speak that a little bit, and I think that's an important piece of this, is that, we haven't yet reached out to local stakeholders. I would envision Trails Committee would be heavily involved in this process as well, but certainly we want to align some commitments and have some, some real feasibility to the project before we kind of engage those stakeholders. But that is part of this process that our department will be doing, is additional public outreach and identifying local champions to really push this process forward and get momentum behind it.
Okay. Yes, Kathy?
I would love to have access from Elizabeth Street down to the pond, so it has nothing to do with community preservation. I'm just wondering who I would talk to about that.
I'm happy to have that conversation. I'm not sure, we can look at, because I think Jordan Road serves that connection, so there is the additional shared use path, but it would be through the Housing Authority site there. I think they have access on Jordan Road, is that correct? No? We can look at that and
Okay,
see if
I'll
there's a
follow
way to-
up with you on that separately. My other question, you said, so there's grant money coming for a big part of this. We may not, depending on what happens with tomorrow's election, we may not get grant money. So there's no sense in voting on money today, because this project may not be able to go forward if we can't get the grant, right?
So we applied for the grant. Mass Trails is not under, one of the projects that is the MBTA, communities.
I thought all
List.
state grant money.
No.
Correct. I mean, it's discretionary, so there could still be some impact. It's not specifically called out as one of those grants that would be ineligible. So, yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee for a grant, so we did apply for this. We would hear back. I believe they respond back in May with a June funding date. So that's about when we would know more about if we've actually gotten the Mass Trails grant.
And first, we have to deem this eligible or ineligible first.
Right.
And then as you've already talked about funding and kind of putting that in the mix, it doesn't sound like we're going to be, looking for approval tonight on that side. But eligibility, that's the first thing. So something that comes to my mind in terms of eligibility, I look at the form, and I know the form is, it's our own cooking here. And so one of the things for sure is in the open space category. You have several checked off, Chris. So I just want to add color to some of the gotchas when you check some of these boxes, right? So the first one is the open space where it says rehabilitate and restore, that's checked off. And so the lands were not acquired through open CPA monies. So we wouldn't be able to use restore or rehabilitate in open space. Because these are trails that are being created and the works that need to make the trail work, right? Whether it's, stormwater improvements, which, go along with the trail, right? That's all part of the trail. It feels to me like we're more in the recreation category. However, recreation also requires that the lands are deemed recreation lands, so that it protects the money from CPA money from being, let's say, inadvertently just repurposed as something else. Meaning, like, it's about protecting the CPA funds that they were intended for recreation. That land should be permanently recreation, and not become, sold off, sold off as housing fronts to lakefront property. That's why that clause is there. Do you know if there are existing recreation land purposes deemed on these lands?
They are all town-owned. The entirety of the project is town-owned land. I do not know for sure if all of the parcels that make up that town-owned land have conservation restrictions on them. I can certainly work to, we can certainly work to establish that at town meeting to conserve these if this was a funded project.
I think it would be good to, before we get further down and tying up, if we move forward in the funding, to tie up on paper 53,000 or move forward with another phase. Could we punt this to the next meeting? It would be possible to review the status of those parcels, and it doesn't necessarily have to be restricted. So whatever any kind of mechanism that protects the land. So whether it could be a town meeting action that said this parcel is for recreation use only, or there's a CR on it. But certainly if it was a general use town, parcel, that my interpretation of 44B is that you couldn't use that. The remedy to that would be going to town meeting and making a decision to deem these recreation lands. So I think, in my opinion, it would be good to learn about the status of these parcels first, with the mindset that we can tee that up for a town meeting, and then do a couple actions there. Deem them, take that first vote, and then if we move forward with funding through the next meetings, to also take the action there too, all in the same town meeting.
Yeah, I think that's achievable.
Okay. Any questions, committee, to that, what I just brought up?
Well, I guess I'm on to my own questions. I don't have any questions on that.
Okay, sure, different question.
On the picture, the pathway in gray, is that already completed, basically?
Correct.
So
That's the
that's-
existing paved portion of the park, and so this largely does not include any improvements to that portion, other than some of the connections to Jordan Road, and that Florence Street that includes parking, that would be a final phase. That's well on, way later after we've done that. We may not even need to do that connection and parking, but we wanted to.
Will you
show
talk
that.
about a new boat ramp on the existing pathway, though?
Sorry?
It says you talk about a new boat ramp or boat launch?
Sorry, so those are, so the boat launch by others, as noted, and the new shore fishing platforms by others were actually installed. So that was part of a DCR project that was done last year. So those are installed and in place along the existing.
So that's not part of the cost?
No, it's not part of the cost, and part of that is while we were doing the schematic design, they were still going through the permitting, so we were trying to, we weren't sure if it was gonna be fully constructed, so,
I guess two more questions. One is shared use. What's the definition of shared use?
so shared use is meant to be, it defines some specifications such as, the 5-foot width, and material type, as well as grades. What it's meant to do is, it's shared between all users, so, whether it's wheelchair, bicycle, any, non-motorized vehicles. So this wouldn't be designed to accommodate ATVs or anything like that, but, it is meant to be for other users.
Yeah, no electric scooters, you mean, either?
It would be ADA accessible. That gets into a level of ADA that I'd have to consult with the engineer on how that is handled, but.
Well, if it's ADA is one thing, but some of these scooters go 20 miles an hour. They kind of can run into people pretty quick. Anyway, the other question is the pathway coming off Worthington. That doubles the linear footage of the pathway going around the pond. So I guess the question becomes is that pathway absolutely necessary to the project, or is that a nice to have? I mean, that looks like it increases the cost quite a bit.
So the request right now is only for to bring the schematic to the construction level design documents. We're not proposing any work with this Mass Trails grant application. Again, because of the scope of this project, we'll likely have to do a phased approach. So likely we would, depending upon funding and actual costs, as we get through that construction design and have a more refined scope, I imagine we would look at doing, finishing the loop of Jordan Pond first, and then do the Worthington Ave and then additional connections from there. So it would be a phased approach.
But the $1.9 million includes all of it or just the first phase?
The 1,000,009 includes Worthington and.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the real request may be less in terms of phasing it.
Correct, and I anticipate as we go through construction and refinement of the construction design and refinement of the proposals, so that includes the scope of those proposed overlooks, which are pretty substantial, and that was one of the first things as we reviewed it, reducing those in scope to be more of like a small deck rather than, they're actually pretty large when you scale them out, so there'll be some of the value engineering done as well during that phase.
Okay. All set.
I have a question as far as distribution of funds according to eligibility. Because it's joint with the grant, if there's parts of the project that aren't eligible, how is that determined when the funding is distributed? Like, you know what I mean? It's like a whole big project, but if we give so much money and there's a portion of that isn't eligible, and I'm trying to think, the only thing that came to my mind off the top of my head was some of the signage and stuff like that. I'm not sure where that falls. But would that have to be separated somehow in the accounting, or how does that work?
Yeah, that would have to be separate. And at this point, it's a conceptual design, and I think that we shouldn't move forward with eligibility tonight because at the very baseline here, we're trying to do a trail, and the land has to be recreation appropriate, at least to get understanding the status of that. or a willingness to move forward with changing the use of the land. So I think it's a very key question for eligibility. But the next part about eligibility is, Chris already, you know that certain things we wouldn't be able to pay for otherwise. So if there's, signage has been through the, if it's part of the trail, integrated into the trail, I think yes. If it was signage that was not part of a trail, no. If it was stormwater improvements that are not relative to the trail, then that sounds like then that would be a different project. Still eligible project, it could be perhaps under open space to preserve, right? If that was somewhere different from where the trail is, so it really gets into the details of that, but I know you know that those constructs.
Yeah, so I think that's part of our, originally when thinking about this project, we were also thinking about asking for the full $625,000 Mass Trails grant and getting some of the preliminary work done. But that was, part of that conversation evolved at the staff level, and we, determined that it's probably better to kind of walk before we run and make sure we get through the full construction design documents, which will detail that in real specificity. Obviously, this shows boardwalks and some of that, but we don't have tech specs, we don't have some of the, I know engineering's done some work and we have an idea of some of those, but again, to have those in a real explicit detail that we can provide of what the actual scope down to the nuts and bolts, we'll be able to provide that after this construction design documents are developed, so.
Okay. That's good.
I guess I do have one more question. The cost is broken down kind of into two projects. There's a $975 and a $294,000. What's in the $294,000, I guess, because the way it's described, is that the access from Jordan Road and then from the Coolidge School to the parking lot, I'm guessing, for the $294?
So which document? So the request is for $260 total project cost. We're looking for $53,000 from CPA funds, matched with the $207,000 from Mass Trails.
I know, what is this, 290?
No, you said it was $2 million total cost.
So that's, yeah, so we included the estimate of probable cost that was developed in tandem with the schematic design. So what we're looking at primarily funding is this design contingency, which is the 20%.
Yeah.
So their estimate was $253,925. We rounded up just because we're.
No, I'm looking at, you have one here that it says accessible shared use path, $975,000. The
Correct.
other one says access drive and parking area,
Yeah.
$294.
Yeah, so the shared use path improvements is the Worthington Ave. So there's a further breakdown of that document, but that's the summary of it. So the shared use path and improvements is the remainder of the Jordan Loop and the Worthington access, as well as the connection to Jordan Road. The parking lot and access drive improvements, that $300,000 is the Florence Street access.
It's Florence Street and from Coolidge to the parking area? I mean, it doesn't make sense that the Jordan Road to the park is $300,000. That's a very short distance.
No, correct. So Florence Street, so there's that, let me pull up the,
I'm guessing the driveway from Coolidge to where you would park your car.
That exists, that's on the ground currently, it's an asphalt driveway.
Well, it says here, it says new 24-foot wide asphalt drive.
right, so it'd be redoing that existing, it's in some poor condition, but, so the 294 is for this drive here, the access drive, and some
Parking.
parking here, but again, that would be held as probably the last piece of this project. We're still not sure if that's really needed.
That's okay, I just wanted to understand what the number was for.
Okay. All right, so again, this is an eligibility question about moving forward with design, conceptual design for this effort. And again, we're not taking a vote on eligibility tonight because of the reasons I stated earlier. Is there any other questions very specifically for eligibility so we can move on to the next?
I withdraw my hand.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other eligibility questions? Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next project. Okay. It is Arrowwood Playground, so now we're at 5B2. All right. If you could please introduce yourself.
Yes, hello, my name's Mariana Mariscal from M3 Land Studio. I'm a landscape architect and owner rep here for Kevin for this playground.
Thank you. Did you get the name? For the record?
I will check on the spelling later, yeah.
Can you,
Yes, Mariana, it's M-A-R-I-A-N-A, and the last name is M-A-R-I-S-C-A-L. And the
Sorry,
company,
what was that last?
Mariscal, C-A-L.
C-A-L,
Charlie Alpha.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
You're welcome.
for M3 Studio.
Can I?
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you. Welcome.
thank you.
So my understanding, there's a new, a revised proposal.
Yes.
Yes, we went back to the drawing board on this. We've reached out, Mariana reached out to a handful of playground manufacturers to come up with some of these concept designs that we have. We gave them a cap of $400,000 to include the rubber surfacing and the equipment along with installation. Where the rest of the money is for actual site work that would need to be done before all of this installation, and the fence is not included in that price either. Where things get a little, I don't want to say tricky, but we'd like to think that we could look at a design and just say, we really like that, that's what we want, but we have the state bidding laws. So we can't zero in on a particular company with their equipment. So when we get approval on this, that's when we get into the nitty-gritty on specs. And while the equipment is stuff that we like, there's no guarantee that we get exactly what we're looking at. We have the range of what products we want. You know, generally speaking, like a swing and a slide and a climbing structure. You know, we can say terms like that, but we can't look at that one picture, no matter how much we love it, and say that's exactly what we're going to get there. We're going to try. You know, there are ways to work with this stuff, but so I mean that's where we came in. I mean, we refined the price, we moved it into the playground only, and cut out the other part of it that we had originally looked at, basically due to money constraints. So we feel that this is where we should be, that we can get this done for this money. And, I mean, you never know what the bidding atmospheres are gonna be like.
Right.
But, because we would be going out to bid in this later in the year than we really would like to. You know, ultimately, you wanna grab people when they're planning their work, not when they're in the middle of their season, but that's just the way it works out, so that's really how the timing would work out.
Okay. Committee members, questions? I mean, I'll first start off and say thank you for hearing the committee members' comments over the last several sessions. You know, obviously there was a big sticker shock with the original plan, and I think this moving from nearly 1.1 million down to 600,000 is a huge difference, which I think I mean, certainly it's still a lot of money, right? It's not, but from when we started off, that's a huge change. And I think that certainly this is not, speaking for myself, I don't really feel this should be looked at as a template for other locations. So, we wouldn't say, I personally wouldn't say, well, that means every project should be 600,000, right, for every playground out there. And our community needs to be refurbished. But I think it definitely moves in the right direction. And whether it's up to the committee, if we have A, funding, B, prioritization. We've already deemed the project as eligible, right? So that's already given. So now it's a question about whether it fits from a prioritization, again, funding and prioritization perspective. Given the new calculation on this, Kevin, does this change your calculus relative to the other playground needs in our community and how this pricing has come in?
I mean, we still, again, we're not looking at this to set a precedent on the other areas. We're probably gonna want different kinds of play in different areas. This is more geared towards this neighborhood, and after meetings, what we were looking for play value and the needs of that particular area. So yeah, I mean, we may have other places that are more naturescapes and not so high on the price. I do think we're at market value here. I think we've done enough research on this in surrounding communities and what they're coming in with. The prices are right there, unfortunately. I wish I could say we could, you go cheaper, but if you go cheaper, you get less, and, we're in the business to keep kids playing and keep them busy and not have them bored after 5 minutes and want to go home. So, there is a certain value that we're looking for here, as well as the accessibility parts of all of this. So.
Anybody else?
I just, I'm going to follow up on your own comments about, thank you for coming back to this. I know it's been a long road, and to come, as you said, 1.1 an hour, 600,000, so it's almost half based on your numbers. That's great. That's great. So I'm hoping the committee appreciates that, and hopefully we can move forward.
Question about, I know there's two options, option 1, 2, and can you just comment on who decides on an approach and how does that go along with the bidding process?
So it's
No, go ahead.
okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
So my understanding from a designer, landscape architect point of view is that there's still like a community input necessary for them. And because we looked at 4 manufacturers, we came with the 2 that were closer to our budget. Believe it or not, there were 2 others that couldn't make our budget. So now, hopefully with the funds, we have another community process where we give them options in terms of not so much the manufacturer or the type of colors or like that, but it's more the play value for that community. So we still are sort of hoping to have one community outreach, and we met with Jenna and I forget. Patty, yes. And we had, they did a really awesome summary of what they thought their community needed, but we need to sort of go back and do another outreach to make sure that everybody is okay with the play value and layout and that's why we're giving them those 2 options. But in terms of pricing, they're pretty much the same.
So ultimately, who decides which option?
The community.
The community.
Yes.
It would be possible to hear from them as to what direction they're going?
Well, first I'd like to ask whether, when, is there a public hearing, or how is that engagement planned, if planned?
Well, we don't have one just yet, but I thought we needed to get through this phase first,
For the funding.
and otherwise it's really a moot point if we don't have approval for funding, so.
I'm a little confused. Is it Arrowwood community that decides, or is it the town of Shrewsbury community that decides which option?
Well, whoever shows up would have input
Okay.
at a meeting.
So it'd be a public-
I mean, it would be, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
not
We
just
wouldn't-
for
We wouldn't
Arrowwood.
just invite one neighborhood, no.
Yeah, it's a public meeting, not a hearing. but
Okay,
public meeting.
got it.
That
I mean,
land-
certainly we can have one, I mean, we can certainly have that as part of a CPC, which if you'd like to use that as a mechanism, will be appropriate, yeah.
And that land has been turned over to the town, right? That's one of the first flex subdivisions we had in town.
Yes, that's part of the deal.
So just to be clear, I think, municipal staff would be the final decision maker in that, the design elements and the actual implementation of the park as funded. But we certainly would look for public input. We can do that as part of our CPC process. If we want to do it, similar to the other funding applications, we could do that for the next meeting in March, and invite, public comment on all of the applications that we've been reviewing. We can certainly, work with Parks Department to do one outside of the formal process as well. So
Okay, so you would have a separate one as well for parks?
if we haven't discussed public outreach yet, but
Okay.
we can have that conversation if.
All right, so for the purposes of what CPC's business, yes, we would have for the next meeting, invite this project open for public comment, for input into whether we approve this project going forward for a funding perspective. I'm hearing that both options are the same pricing,
Price-wise, yes.
so it's not really,
It's just, yeah, I would need to go into the nitty-gritty,
Yeah.
which I don't think you're interested, or we have the time to do that, but yes, and the footprint, and just sort of background, the footprint right now of what existing is, given the sand area, is 5,000 square feet. Our initial design was around 6,000 square feet, and now we're down to 3,000 and something for the port in place, which is the big dollar value. It's $30 a square foot. And that's, I know a lot of communities think it's ridiculous. I do too, but that's where it is right now, market value. So what you invest in the play equipment, you invest the same price goes for the surfacing, which that's why we're, crunching down the size of the area.
yes. No, understood. Thank you. Since you are here, can you comment on the lifespan of?
Yeah, so all the vendors that we chose are ASTM, IPMA, and they have CPSC sort of guidelines. So all of them, right off the bat, are very good in terms of their warranties, guarantees. All of the posts that you see on both options are steel, and usually their lifespan is 50+ years. The slides are plastic, but they're, high quality, not cheaper, so they last a long time. And basically anything, obviously knowing Kevin, anything that would rotate too much or would have electronic components, things like that, we disregarded, possibly too for pricing. But it's also, I think, engaging with something simpler is actually better for kids. At least that's what the teachers tell me in most of the cases. And it also, maintenance-wise, is less money for Kevin to go back and change parts, except for things like swings and, ropes, things like that the kids use every day, well, of course. But nothing electronic, nothing that has moving parts, something like that.
How about the rubber?
You were
Yeah.
speaking to the surface itself, the
Yeah.
lifespan of the surface itself.
So 7 years guarantee is usually the manufacturers. Again, like my comment, and sorry about this, but it all depends on maintenance and user. But in this case, it's a neighborhood playground, so it's not like you're having recess 500 kids every single day. So my guess is the lifespan of the surfacing will be more like 10, 15 years plus. And it's just a matter of Kevin doing his usual rounds to make sure there's no, uneven areas. When you see them, you call them. So you have a 7-year guarantee from the moment that you put down. And that's part of our specifications request, that all the installations, the materials, everything used is recorded and handed to Kevin as part of the operations and maintenance for him to know how to proceed.
The other thing too that's nice with this surfacing is you don't have to replace the whole thing at once. If you go to the new Beal, you could see that we've already had to do patchwork over there. So it's a matter of cutting out an area. So you're probably gonna have some spots that wear more than others, and you can just remove those particular areas, whether it's 5 square feet, whatever, at a lower cost, and you change up the colors, so it's, whether it changes the pattern or whatever, that's fine. But you don't, we don't want to sit here and say the thing's gonna last 10 years, and then all of a sudden we have to rip the whole thing out and replace it, because that's really not the case.
Okay.
It's just those heavy wear out areas, and they can all be addressed separately and patched up, basically.
Great.
If you scroll up in the PDF, there's the other, just so that they can see the other option. Yeah, that's another one. And one of the things that was very important that even before meeting part of the community, we, as the design team with a certified playground safety inspector, we thought this area was really, really hot in summer when we did the inspections. So things like shade, structures, and trees, certain things like that were kind of non-negotiable when the playground manufacturers were like, if you lose this and this, we can add. I was like, no, this area needs shade. It's, we felt it, the community asked for it, so those things were in all options there, and you'll see them in both of those 2 options.
Comments?
Well, I like option 2. It looks nice.
Yeah.
It's very nice. I just don't know if we need to know whether we're going with option 1 or option 2 to vote on funding.
I don't think so.
we don't.
And I think that there's the same price, and
Yeah.
is there not a material but is it a significant, is there any difference that we need to be concerned about, which way the community goes?
No, I mean, really, to be honest, if this was a community meeting, I would present it at layout, play value, like what type of events they have.
Yes.
And see what the community, I mean, just to go into a little bit of design, there is the universal design component right now, which a lot of municipalities are getting into, which is integrated. So not adapting designs to children with special needs, but more integrating the children's with special needs. And for instance, that carousel over there, you can see there's a child with a wheelchair on it, which is really nice. And that specific one was requested because some other carousels, you need to transfer a child with a wheelchair into the carousel or into the spinning component. And then I thought this was a really good sort of solution for inclusivity, because both the children inside and outside can be spinning, and it just creates a little bit nicer integration of children like that. And both options have certain things of integrating, but specifically that spinner I thought was interesting for that reason. So.
Could a grandparent in a wheelchair be on that spinner?
Of course, yeah. And I think it's slow, like even for some kids but it has the purpose that you're not going to fly away. It has like a rail at the.
But in reality, also it depends on the bidding process and what they should.
Yeah, so part of,
ideal.
so going back
Yeah.
with Kevin, when we saw this, it's like, how can we make sure this is not gonna swap? And it's putting the specs to a point where we're saying it has to allow for a wheelchair to come in, to be protected. And so that really streamlines your manufacturers
Gotcha.
to 3 or 4,
Okay.
right?
All right, thank you.
And hopefully that will help us get closer to what we want to have,
All right, so thank you.
of course.
Gail, yes.
I'll try and make it short. I'm thrilled that you brought this whole project down to a smaller scope. I'm still struggling a little bit with the whole concept of the, I don't want this to sound negative or that I'm not in favor of anything. It's just I have to justify it in my own mind as to where we put CPA funds and how we distribute it throughout the community. The town has a huge list of, of parks and recreation areas, and based on the assessment that we funded a couple years ago, they all need work. So this is a project that's gonna, this is gonna be an ongoing situation throughout the town. This body, as well as town meeting members, have the ability to fund in full, or fund more, or fund, if not
No,
more,
no.
fund less, or
Not
what we
one.
recommend. So if full funding wasn't to happen, what would the status of this project be? Where do you go from there? It just dissolves?
Mm.
Okay.
Right, the old equipment comes out and we basically have an empty
Lot.
open space lot.
Okay. So has there been any, I know that each community, the parks and recreation areas that we have in our town service a broad range of people, some within that small community, some that don't have neighborhood playgrounds and parks, go to Dean Park or the fields or other areas, Jordan Pond access. So these neighborhood parks are a little bit more specific to that neighborhood. And it almost seems like there should be some ownership from those residents. Should the town be funding neighborhood parks to be as nice as these? This is wonderful, and every neighborhood would love to have a park or a playground like this. But what's the town's responsibility for that? Has anybody, and this is gonna sound like a horrible thing, but we have special assessments for road improvements, for sewers, for this, for that. Has there been any thought of a small special assessment for those people that in that neighborhood to help fund their park? I kind of am afraid that when we develop these playgrounds, yes, they're town-owned property, and anybody can use them, but they really were designed for the neighborhood, and they should be specific for that neighborhood and not be open to, people from Worcester or Paxton or anybody else that wants to come into that neighborhood and play on that playground. We have Dean Park they can do that for, because it's a municipal park. But I don't know, I'm having a problem with the whole scope of these park
Well-
renovations.
Oh,
And I would
Yeah.
love to see a big plan as to,
Yeah.
okay, we have all these parks,
Love
and this is what we need, and we need $20 million to do it, and how are we gonna fund that, and how are we gonna phase it out, and how's it gonna happen?
Yeah.
This is a wonderful start, and and I'm so
No, I have
happy
your
that
answer.
it's been brought to the surface, because if
Yeah.
the residents hadn't done that, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about the possibilities.
Right, so, almost a year ago, I finished, for the town of Shrewsbury, their playground study. So we went out, a third-party CPSI, certified playground safety inspector, and myself, we went out and inspected all the playgrounds in Shrewsbury, including the schools. And we ranked them, and the documents actually.
Yeah,
in
that's, we've seen, I've
Oh,
seen-
you've seen it, okay.
They
And we.
paid for it.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
funded
Okay. So we gave recommendations. And part of that recommendations at some point, because having done this for many years, I did the 39 playgrounds for Worcester. And I did also for Salem and, well, anyway. So part of sitting with the clients and understanding how municipalities work and the same problem is realizing that at some point you can budget like right now, right, we say, okay, maximum 600, and we'll see how we go from there. Some of them will have to lose, some of them will have a little bit more. Part of it is all of the invitations for federal grants, which now I understand, like the land and water. It's not probably gonna be possible, and it's too sad because there's a lot of clients that had applied for that grant. And part of it too is understanding that if there's no money and you're stretched thin, and I'm saying like Kevin and his crew, sometimes it's cutting, like you said, you know, maybe it's not good to have 20 playgrounds if you really can only manage 15, right? And that's the hardest, for me, the hardest decision, because when you're at a community meeting and somebody says, a public meeting, why did you close that project? And I see my clients saying, there's no money, there's no funds to maintain it, and it's a huge liability. And that I do understand, and Kevin does as well, you know, of seeing how kids play and all of that. At the end of the day, the last thing we want is any liability here in the town of Shrewsbury. So if it comes to the worst scenario, and when we were sitting down doing those recommendations, I said, Kevin, if your worst scenario is to lose playgrounds, here is a list of the ones when we were out there, we saw could be closed out. I mean, it's not I don't feel like I'm entitled to tell him which ones, but it was a recommendation in case there was a situation where he had to go from 19 to, like, say 15 or whatever. So I don't know if that answers your question. In terms of having residents fund the playgrounds, I've seen residents like Jenna, you know, they come up, they do grants. There was a grant for, I'm not a proponent of community-built playgrounds because, again, of the liability, and because when I've been in charge of those community-built playgrounds, they usually turn out pretty awful, and their lifespan's like 5 years. And I wouldn't recommend that in Shrewsbury, and I think it would make it harder on Kevin. So I would say if that's the case, maybe the like Friends of the Playground could do like the planting, could help with fencing, could help with benches, trees. I mean, a lot of the cuts here in Arrowwood were trees. Like we basically, I think, have 3 or 4 trees. That's basically it, right? So all of those things are not hugely liabilities and could be done with I wouldn't suggest that port-in-place or play equipment be addressed or installed by community members. I mean, I honestly think that that's not a good scenario. But I don't know if that.
Well, I agree with what you said, so I suppose it comes down to what is the bare essentials that a neighborhood playground needs? Is it a basketball court and a swing and a you know, play structure, or is it, you know, pergolas and everything else? So that's the rub I'm having. It's like, okay, how much can we scale this down so that it facilitates the neighborhood need? Mm-hmm. People have backyards too with swing sets. Mm-hmm. So what's the purpose of that neighborhood playground? Is it for gathering for a bunch of kids to play basketball? So then you need the basketball.
Well, first, I think, you know, we have to understand that we made the developers put those playgrounds in years ago. Standards were different than they are now. You could get away with things back then that you can't, and you really shouldn't try to get away with. Mm-hmm. We also know that this is not our only funding mechanism moving forward. We know that after this 5-year process, believe it or not, just for this one project, that this is not where we're gonna fund 20 more playgrounds. Okay. So it's up to us on our end to find other ways, whether it's large community sponsors, you know, to help out with this. And I'm not saying that we wouldn't come back here for money, but our hope would be to find other sources to supplement what we could get here and keep those prices down. We're in the play business, so it's hard for me to say I don't want people coming to a playground, even though it's in a certain neighborhood. You know, we would look at anything as being proud to have people want to come to our places. I don't think that these neighborhood playgrounds will be overrun with people from other towns or, you know, even Worcester. I mean, that's the closest place. When we look at Edgemere down the road, I think that's the one, because we have more of a parks facility there with the ball field and everything. That would probably be more of a draw for other people, but you know, again, I'm just going back to the funding part, that we know this is not the answer, unless you want to get them to vote in 3%. But yeah, no, we understand that, and you know, we learned a lot from this process too, in that, you know, we need to reach out, and we've talked about this in depth with the recreation department, and as they grow and they get into more work with sponsorships, you know, there might be other avenues, whether it's local banks or businesses that want to get the ball rolling on some other projects, and once you get a couple in there, you know, the money adds up, and you know, so that's, you know, I just don't want you to think that we're just looking at this is going to be the answer.
I appreciate your candor, and I think it's important for us to have these discussions on these things, because you know, you have to understand what's going on and make sure that you're comfortable with it. And what you just said made a big difference in my thought process, because I hadn't heard that before as far as funding going forward. I was assuming that CPA was going to be the go-to place all the time, and we can't be the go-to place all the time because we just don't have the funds. So it's frustrating, because we want these projects to happen, but our hands are tied. So I appreciate your explanation. And I'll be quiet now.
Okay, and we do need to wrap up on this topic, but I want to comment that, I mean, there are opportunities to bucket these beyond this project, bucket other projects to come together, right? We talked about already in previous conversations about bonding opportunities, right? So take a few projects together, put it together into one package, and then use future CPA funds in a bond mechanism, right, to fund them. I will comment that, looking at the playground assessment, which you wrote, the recommendations put Arrowwood Park fourth on the list. First on the list was Turnberry, second was Tolben, 3 Hillando, 4 was Arrowwood, 5 is Edgemere, which is already in progress, another project. And the first highest priority on school grounds is Little Colonial's preschool at 8.
Yeah.
So I look at that and say, well, that's another audience, a high volume. You know, there's certainly plenty of need. I feel that I think we've had, this is a project that's in front of us now, and I think that we should move forward with the project that's in front of us, and look at that from a prioritization of, do we have the funds available? Is this a priority for our community? I interpret it as this document and tells us that it is a high priority, right? It's up there in the top echelons.
I can tell you that the top 4 are all just as bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
That's why it was easy to just pick out of order, so to say.
Yeah.
But
And
yeah.
it also depends, again, on the
Yeah, and having community engagement as well.
because that
Yeah.
didn't take into
Yeah.
account.
So I think those are all great things. I think to move on with this topic, certainly the ask for next meeting is that we have a, open for public forum to talk about any of the projects, this project, and along with the prior two projects. Oh, I'm sorry, the prior project, the Prospect Park, EDA. We already deemed the ledger one as small, and we're moved to be able to move forward with that. So those 2 projects open for the next meeting for public comments. And for clarification, our CPC meeting is not to talk about option 1 versus option 2. We're not in the design spec, and I think that would be separate. And if that's your wheelhouse to determine if that's necessary, we just need to understand what is the public comment relative to, is this project a priority? to move forward. Any questions about the next step?
Just in terms of those, the public hearings, can we also put Jordan Pond as a public hearing? I know we didn't make it through the eligibility phase, but if we are able to, at the next meeting, I'd like to move forward with a similar process to make sure that we can get to Maytown meeting for that.
Yes, unless you find, in good faith, yes. But from now to then, if we come across like a gotcha that some of these parcels are not eligible, then that, that,
But he submitted his trail
And that
match,
shows up.
yeah.
so you'd hate to get it.
But they're
Follow
both
the list.
caught too on the, hey, I approve, you approve, I approve, right?
Right.
So you need both to be approved, right? But yes, I think in good faith, we can move forward. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think there's, the end of, the short story on that is positive. Tonight's a positive conversation. Now it's about prioritization, funding-wise. Cool, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're at the 2-hour mark. CPC annual report draft.
Thank you. So I'll be quick with this one. The annual report draft was provided in the meeting materials. This is a report that our office prepares for all of the boards and committees that we staff. So we provided this to you. If there's any additional amendments, we did submit this to the town manager's office as a first draft. They finalized those through February. So if we have edits tonight, I'm happy to incorporate those. Please email them to me, and I'll be happy to incorporate them and submit that as a final draft.
Thank you.
But I'd like to put that in front of the committee for their review as well.
Any edits recommended at this time?
Looked fine to me.
What's that?
Any edits recommended this time? Okay, all right, so to Chris's point, make that available to email if you come across it offline. Okay, next order of business is 6B, May meeting town, I'm sorry, the May meeting needs to move.
Yep, so in reviewing the May 5th is a election night, so we'll need to find an alternative date for that, or otherwise cancel, so.
The election night on Monday.
Yeah, we have a conflict for that meeting date, so we'll have to,
Is it about the location or, right, because,
Election Eve.
I mean, tonight's election eve.
sorry, May 5th, not tonight.
Yeah.
Right, but today is, and we're here today, so it is, I don't really understand why we have to change it.
Do they have all the,
Is it
We
because
have-
they use this room and they,
Right, yeah, and they usually have this set up.
We meet in the library?
so that's what I mean. Is it possible to go meet somewhere else and keep the same night
police station?
as opposed to moving the date?
To that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at a different location. Yeah.
Is that something that's readily available to look at? They can do it now in real time, or too complicated to do?
I'd rather do it
Yeah.
at
Okay.
another time. I'll look at locations and make sure they're available.
Just since you came prepared for, did you have another date in mind to cross off, or
We
no?
got to May to figure it out, so
Oh, okay, okay, all right.
I'll have that.
We're going to
I'll have
have
that for next
two-
meeting.
Two, community input sessions from two different groups. We're gonna need space and,
Yes, which leads to another, if we're good with that topic, there's a next unrelated, not on the list here, but it should be next steps anyway, which is the April public hearing, or public hearing that's generally for the Community Preservation Plan update. And I think there's an opportunity there to club together, if you need to use April, or, I think we need to just plan that. We need to figure out how to put that into the works.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally we use the library for that, just a slightly larger space, and has the presentation drop down, so we can put that on for the March meeting, but we'll have those materials, and we can book that room for that and for publication in March for the April meeting.
Is that the meeting we would anticipate prioritization?
So the April are you saying to have
getting
the meeting in March instead? Have the same meeting?
No, we can put the details of the public hearing to be advertised at the March meeting to then publish for April.
Oh, gotcha, because that one has to be published in the paper. Right, 3 weeks out or something like that. So we have a community preservation plan that guides the community's prioritization in community opportunities, needs, and resources across all four areas. And with that, we hear comments about what their prioritization is and whether there's any updates to the plan based on those. So let's say we had a huge influx talking about community housing and how much is a need for that and it's not available in Shrewsbury. We would hear that and then review the community preservation plan to see do our goals distinctly put all those requirements together. Do they still hit the need of that year? And so that plan's supposed to guide us in these sessions for that year coming. So as these projects have come across, all of them are hitting on our stated plan goals for this year.
But at some point, these individual projects are gonna become warrant articles, correct?
Yes, those that are recommended, yes, will be warrant articles. So the projects in the pipeline right now turn to warrant articles, then they get to town meeting. We are getting input from the community about individual projects. The public hearing about the community preservation plan is a broad conversation about all the needs in the community. So there will be 2 different scopes.
So there's one that's going for April, is the broad.
April is the broad one, yep.
And March, we're looking for the
Regular CPC
project
meeting to
specific.
project specific.
project-specific
Yes.
with community input.
Yes. Yes. And the April one is also public hearing, formal,
Yeah.
published in the paper, going to the library, on all the needs of the community. Okay? All right. Any other next steps we have to take care of? Business tonight? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
And
Second.
thank you. And we'll take a roll call. Start with Deborah.
Aye.
Okay. You're like, I've been waiting for this. It's taking too long, Jason. Steve?
Yeah.
Aye.
Carl?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Gail?
Aye.
Melanie?
Aye.
Myself, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.